All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 10 of the Realty Radio Show. I am your host, Rich, local real estate broker here in Denver. Today, I have a very special guest with me. His name is David Gill. He is a father to a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. He has a career in software sales. And guys, this guy has a voice that is made for podcasts. So, David, how you doing, man?
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Thanks so much for coming on. Why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit more about what you do for work, personal life, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, thanks a bunch, man. Quick intro is Colorado and Denver native. I actually live in the neighborhood that I grew up in. Not planned, it just happened. Uh, Great place though. We're really happy. Wife, 2 kids, as you outlined. They're monsters, but they're our monsters, so we love them. It is Halloween, so I guess it's fitting that they're monsters.
This is
But
the one day a year they can
this
be
is
monsters.
this is the one day where they're gonna live up to their name. Uh, yeah, so got out of CSU, studied economics up there, and ended up playing golf for about 7 straight months and blowing every single cent that I had. And I was living with my dad at the time, and he says, "Yo, man, you got to get a job. You know, you're a deadbeat." And I ended up getting a job down at a local bank. Um, Kind of worked at the bank for about 8 or 9 months and had an internal opening. Uh, didn't know much about security, but it was for an internal security position. Told him that I could learn it. I ended up getting the job. Worked that for about 8.5 years, and through that, you develop relationships with vendors and miscellaneous other people in the industry. And had a guy that kind of said, "Hey, man, you would be really natural in a sales position." And I'm like, I don't know. And ended up being a leap of faith that I took, and took the leap. Ended up working for a company, a security company, for about 9 years there, and then recently, a couple of years ago, made a switch to a kind of a business continuity, disaster recovery type company, and been working there for almost 2 years now. So yeah, it's been a pretty cool journey. One that obviously nobody can predict. It just kind of you just kind of roll with it, and I think that the leap of faith was a good one, and so it's nice to take action on something that somebody else sees in you, and you kind of
Mhm.
go with it. And so I think that was kind of a big deal for me. Was like, okay, I can do this first of all, which I think is cool. Um, but also having other people kind of be your champion and being like, yeah, like, dude, you can do that. Like, this is natural for you. Trust it and just go with it.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad, because yeah, it kind of opened up a lot of doors that I didn't even know were available to me. So yeah, it's been great so far. And like I said, just living the life with the kiddos and the wife and the fam. So it's been good.
That's incredible, man. And I kind of got into this career based upon the suggestion of another human being as well, that being my wife,
Yeah.
7 years ago. But it's interesting what happens when you keep your mind open to different opportunities and where things take you, where life takes you. So you've been doing software stuff. So you got into the current role 2 years ago, um, kind of in the middle of the C word, the corona,
Yep.
the cerveza sickness. Um, so how was business for you during those 2-3 years that we went through that?
Yeah, so the specific vertical that I'm in is financial services exclusively. So that's my vertical. It's like, hey man, I'm talking with banks, credit unions, check cashing. That's really my specialty. And obviously it comes with my background, right? Because
Sure.
for lack of a better term, I was on one side of the desk one day, and then I ended up taking a job and I was on the other side of the desk the next day. But that helped me because I can speak the language and I understand the restrictions and I understand the process, and kind of that really gave me an edge up. And it also helped to build rapport, um, with anybody, whether it's a prospect or customer. There was a lot of credibility in that. Um, Now, that being said, though, the landscape changes drastically, uh, quickly, where when you have governmental restrictions, whatever that is, where it's like, hey, look, you can't even have your doors open.
Yeah.
Well, that can impact, when you're trying to sell a product to somebody and then there's no customers in their building, that was a interesting thing to navigate, to say the least. But for the two companies that I've been with, in the past 10 years, they're heavily based in subscriptions and ARR, and having that kind of recurring revenue. So the weathering of that situation ended up being okay.
Hmm.
It's not ideal, and obviously tough times for a lot of folks. Um,
Curious, real
but
quick, not to
yeah,
interject, but well, kind of, I am interjecting, but
it's okay. Yeah,
on as we're on the backside of this, as we were kind of mentioning prior to to our talk today, on the backside of the cerveza sickness, if you will, have you seen your sales jump, decline? We're clearly in a different economic environment now than we were 2 years ago. What
right.
have you seen, like, business wise?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have the best perspective because my change did occur kind of in the middle to the back half
Okay,
of the intense portion of COVID.
got it.
So with my previous company, we did see a decline simply because of the availability of services to customers. Now that being said, talking with folks that are still back over there, they've come back and bounced back pretty well. Sounds like things are going great. With regards to where I'm at now, um, we are designed and built for helping people out during those tough times.
Okay.
So in general, we do very well when economic times are rough. Now, that hasn't translated or continued through just because of internal elements and other factors that aren't necessarily associated with the actual product or service. It's more associated with like the business organization and the management structure and like the internal changes that were going on. We went through a lot of M&As. I want to say that there was 7 different acquisitions that they had gone through
Wow.
the 3 to 5 years before I came on board. So, uh, from that, as you can imagine, there's a ton of duplicative work, there's a ton of overlap. And so
Yeah.
sorting that out and letting the water kind of settle out has been a process, and it's still going on with this company. So we're kind of weathering that. But on the backside of it, I think that we do have the right leadership in place to kind of finalize that, and then obviously get ready for a new launch pad. So feeling good about where this is at. It's just not necessarily exactly where we want it to be right now.
Got it. Do you like selling?
I like selling when the product's right.
I'm the
So
same
I
way.
think that was a big deal for me was, when I had this guy tell me, "Hey man, like you should totally be a sales rep," like, and I was like, "Well,
It's got a negative, like, attached word to sales rep. What I
yeah,
found.
it it can be." And I've been called every name in the book by random people, so you do have
Same.
to have that thick skin. It's not personal.
Right.
It is what it is. So I don't think about it from that sense. If somebody tells me no, hey, at least I know that there's a line in the sand.
Hey, at
There's
least they
nothing
told
worse.
you something, man.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than somebody that's, I mean, it's kind of a mean term, right? But a spineless person that isn't gonna like just tell me what it is.
Yeah.
It's like the person that would break up with you on text message or just ghost you or something. It's
And
like,
then
come on.
and then even worse, say it's not you, it's me, and then not say anything back or whatever it is.
Sure, sure. So no, I do. The one big stipulation that I had when I was going to jump into the sales role was to have a product that I truly believed in and that I thought was going to help the community, was going to help our customers, was a very positive product. There are 1,000, there's a million products out there that are very negative, that do a lot of bad things for
Yeah.
people, to people, etc. And so, you know, being in the security world, I believe that everything that I have been selling and been a part of has been positive for me, for my company, for the community, for society in general. Um, and so with that, that's a mission that I can get behind. If I didn't believe that, I
Hmm.
wouldn't I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting point that you bring up, and I've always kind of been the same way, man. There's not only a lot of bad products out there, but there's I mean, the list goes on. There's predatory products. There's things that are just downright scams.
Yep,
And if you don't feel good about selling what you're selling, it, it's just not a happy life.
yep,
And you're just not in your element. And that's why I enjoy what I do, because ultimately I'm kind of selling myself, and I stand behind myself.
love it.
I know, the quality of myself and the product that I put out. So it's
Right,
easier,
right.
but yeah, you still get the FUs and the, all that
Sure.
kind
Oh
of
yeah,
stuff.
and that's okay. I mean, ultimately, one thing that's really tough about the security world is that security is a
Like
let me
cybersecurity.
in right now we're in physical disaster recovery business continuity space, so we want to ensure that companies can keep their doors open and ensure that their business function is continuing forward.
So
Now,
that's a lot of big words. Can you break that down for me, like I was your 4-year-old?
yeah, so the specific product that I sell is a software platform that helps companies, anticipate, mitigate, respond to, and recover from critical events. Now, a
I
critical
see.
event can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends on what would impact you and your business operation. Um, so obviously, we have a spectrum of what we can bring in to people information wise that helps them plan, prepare for, and navigate those situations. And so, um, again, that might be something as simple as civil unrest. It might be weather related. Those are really big items for us is weather. I mean, let's be real. Hurricanes will impact your business operations. So things like that. Um, that's where we're,
No,
yeah,
hurricanes wouldn't impact any.
right. That's where we're at now. But it's all when we talk about the business continuity space, there's a lot of ways to navigate each individual situation. The idea is to have the most timely, pertinent, vetted information so that you can make the right decision for yourself and your organization. That's what I do right now is we bring in the correct information so that you can make a good value-based decision for you and your organization. That's it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Sweet. The 4-year-old hears you loud and clear, my friend.
Good. Good.
Um, so you live a very interesting life. You got 2 little ones. You're married. You're in software sales. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So I'm 39.
Okay.
I turned the big 40 in May.
Oh man, we got to do something special.
Yeah. I, golf will be involved. I'm a I am a junkie, man.
Yep. Well, maybe we'll get out there and
I am an
go somewhere
addict.
cool for golf. Yeah.
I am an addict. It
Well,
is
that's why you and
it's the
Justin get
best.
along so well.
It is, man. And I just love like you're never playing anybody but the course.
Yeah.
You're only playing yourself and the course. You might be
Mm-hmm.
out there with somebody else, but really it's down to you and your ball and you navigating that specific situation and what it is. And I love that every shot is a new shot. The past doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about moving forward, and you have the ability to do something miraculous with each shot. It's pretty cool. So yeah, golf's a good one, and there's a lot of life lessons and parallels with golf. So it's a good way to live life.
It's a very fundamental thought process of what you're throwing down, and psychology around sports in general, but specifically like one man's, like golf, tennis,
Hmm.
um, swimming. Like in most of those scenarios, it's just you, man. Like it's you against you, and that's how
That
always how I've viewed it. Versus team sports, and team sports are great too. Like I played a lot of basketball growing up, but that is more so like, how do you plug into a unit, and be a strong member of the unit, and how do you make other members, strong and stronger, and kind of succeed as that team. Um, unit. I said
Right.
unit about 4 damn times.
No, it's
Um,
true though, because you do have to have that chemistry and that cohesiveness as a team in order to accomplish the goal.
mhm,
So you have to have, you don't even necessarily have to have like-minded individuals, but you do have to be pulling in the same way.
correct.
So you do have to have a similar goal and a similar idea about where you want to be. You don't have to think about it the same way or go about it the same way, um, but you do hope that it's complementary, and that we can agree, even though we might disagree on certain items. If we can agree that the goal is this, then we can still accomplish a goal. And that's where team sports is different, is you got those dynamics of other people.
Speaking of dynamics, you're 39, you got 2 kids, you're married, you have a career. What's been a particularly challenging moment in your life? How did you overcome it? Did you learn anything from it? And in retrospect, would you do anything different?
Yeah, I mean, we talked on the primer, getting ready for our session here. Man, I was in this spot. I was working for a bank, and I ended up going to graduate school to really kind of hone my craft. And I was like, okay, I'm really going to go down this line of being a security professional. I ended up getting a master's degree from Denver University. Um, I had a difference of high level opinion about the organizational structure of where this bank was going. And I was concerned about my role. Again, we talk about team players, right? We talk about what's it like at the team. I
Sure.
didn't I didn't like how the goal of what we were doing was changing. And they wanted to kind of reorganize us in a fashion that really wasn't suited to my strengths. And I vocalized that. And I said, look, I went to school to educate myself on this specific sliver
Hmm.
of business operations here. And the organization felt like we needed a different type of org structure than a specialty. They wanted me to be a little bit more general. And
I mean, after 7 or 8 mergers, man, I can see
yeah,
why.
well, this is at a previous company, but
Got
either
it.
way, long
Okay.
story short was, uh, we had a difference of opinion. I ended up starting to talk to people in the industry to say, maybe it's best that I moved on. Maybe it's best for me to find a different position. I'm not sure my longevity here, et cetera. And we ended up splitting ways, with this job, and I had a meeting the next day with kind of now a confidant and an important member of my circle, and he offered me a job on the spot. He said, "Hey man, you should come work for me. You should be a sales rep." I said, "Okay." Took the leap of faith. So that was the thing. It was like, am I really going to do this? Am I going to get out of this sphere, this thing that I've literally done for 8.5 years that are,
Yeah.
I know how this game works, and get into just something totally different. And it hit a home run with it. I mean, so much more natural, just the flow of everything, the conversations, the people, being able to travel a little bit, like it really did open up a whole new world. And so looking at, where that was, having the uncertainty, which lucky for me was only like 12 hours, uh, and then literally
That's
getting hired
incredible.
the next day, it was like, boom, 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 one of those things. So really lucked out from that sense. So yeah, the major hurdle was the unknown. Now the lesson, I think, is that the unknown almost always is the anticipation that you place on yourself. So it's all mind games. It's not real. It's all like what you interpret it, and what you end up placing on yourself. It's not like you fabricate this all in your mind. It's not reality. So
We
the,
hear this all the time,
yeah, you
and
hear it all
through
the time. It's
books,
like, right.
successful people, and so many of us don't put it into practice, man. It's
Yeah,
real. It's a real thing.
it is totally a real thing. And so I guess I'm proud of myself in that through an uncertain time, I owned a house. I was like, I got mortgage payment. Like, what am I
Yeah,
doing here?
you have
To be like,
responsibilities.
yeah, totally responsibilities are tough, and uh, took the leap of faith, and it was a great decision. And so thankful for being on the backside of that and looking back on it now, being like, oh yeah, definitely take the leap, take the risk, do the things, because you never know what door it can open. And ultimately, I think that the end all is that I'm not in a worse position, even if I had failed.
Yeah.
I now have perspective to be like, okay, I understand more about it, and I can learn from it. So there's never a net negative.
Perspective is huge, and I don't know. I'm a big Gary Vaynerchuk guy. I don't know if have you heard of the guy.
Oh yeah,
His and he's been preaching the same stuff for the last decade. And perspective is a big topic for him. And basically, what I'm getting at is, I mean, you're 39, man. Like you're pretty much not even at halftime yet. If you put it in that perspective, like if you lived to 80, 90 years old, which, average lifespan of an American right now is what, 85 years, 84, something like that. By the time you get there, I'm assuming and hoping it'll be a little higher. So let's just say it'll be 90. I mean, you're not even at half yet,
right,
and so many people forget that and they get stuck in that mentality of like, I've been doing this for, 8 years or 5 years or 12 years or whatever it is. Oh God, like this is scary, man. I'm going to leave this to go into doing something else, but if you take that leap of faith and you bet on yourself, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like
I,
let's be fucking real. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're not going to
yeah,
die.
no, not gonna die. Still gonna have a loving family.
Yeah.
Probably gonna learn more about my capabilities. Um,
And at the end of the day, man, if it
yeah,
doesn't work out, you can literally just go back to what you were doing. That's it.
you
And
got it.
and his whole thing is the entrepreneurship thing and starting businesses. And he's like, you're 25, you're 45, whatever it is. What were you doing prior? Well, I was working at a bank, or working at, Edward Schwab or whatever. Start your business. If it fails, you can literally, like, not Edward Schwab, Jesus, Charles Schwab.
Talk to Chuck.
I knew something was off there. Well, like you start a business, you want to make candles. It doesn't work out. You fail. You lose all the money. Okay. Charles Schwab is still going to be there
Yep.
and you can still go get a job with them. So,
Right.
no, that's huge, man. I respect, respect you for doing that because it is scary, especially when you have, obligations such as, your wife, your mortgage, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that was huge, man. Um, Speaking of kind of economics, let's go macro, man. Because I definitely want to dive into this with you because I love talking about this stuff. We won't get too deep into the weeds on geopolitics and everything that's going around the world, but I do want to touch on how that's going to affect us here domestically. But economically speaking, we're in Q4 of 23. I think recession's been thrown around a lot over the
Yeah, we're in
last
it.
few years.
Oh,
Um,
we're in it. Even though the talking heads don't say we are, we absolutely are. Have
I,
been for about 6 months.
yeah, if not longer. And I don't know exactly
Yeah,
the quarter of when the current administration had literally changed the definition of a recession.
yeah. It's
I
simple.
want,
Just change
yeah,
the definition.
yeah, and poof, bye bye recession. Where do you see this thing going, man? I don't know how deep into the weeds you are on it, but where do you see all of this going as far as capital markets, real estate markets, your industry? What are your thoughts, man? Just like a 30,000-foot view of all of this.
Yeah, cost control is one of the biggest items in general right now. And so you have, especially in my specific vertical, financial services, a very, very lean approach right now. And every dollar is extremely scrutinized. Now you look at the private sector, personal people, me and you start to see, obviously interest rates are high. You start to see uh, the question mark around our buying power. And I think that our buying power is significantly diminished. Um, you know, you have a lot of things going on with regards to the dollar. What's going to happen with another world currency? I think that's a very real problem that America hasn't come to grips with yet.
Yeah,
Um, And that can severely change our stature in the world.
Hmm.
And unfortunately for the tax base, um, the problems of a lot of those high level decisions always roll downhill. And so the rich, the people in politics, um, they're insulated to a large degree from a lot of this.
Yeah,
It's going to be your middle class and your small business owners that end up bearing the brunt of all of these policy decisions.
as
And
always.
as always, um, and that's where the biggest concern is that the middle class is being washed out, and
And I'm young, man.
that's not a good thing.
It's not, because that's the backbone of this country.
Absolutely,
Um, and that's really like everything that we stand for.
it is.
Um, let's unpack a little bit on that topic with the other currencies challenging the current world reserve currency.
Mhm.
Um, it's happening, whether
Oh yeah,
Americans or anybody really wants to acknowledge that fact. Um, you have and it's the pressures are coming from the BRICS nations, right?
yes,
Your main ones being India, China, Russia.
yep.
They're forming alliances all around the globe. I think they're up to
Saudi
44. What's that?
and Saudi.
Yep.
Yeah,
And they're forming these relationships across the globe. And I think right now their membership is up to mid 40s. I want to say 40 different countries, which account for, I want to say, like 60% of the world's population. So we're talking a huge um, human capital number here. Um, what's the way out of this, man? Because they're not stopping, and what they're doing is they're buying a lot of gold, and we can get into that too as far as currency units and purchasing power. Because I love that you brought that up as well. But what? How do you see us getting out of this?
well,
I
without
know we're getting
getting
into like politics now, right?
yeah, without getting too political,
Yeah, yeah,
it's very important to have, as we talked about earlier, perspective. And the perspective is, do we want to be better to the earth? Well, sure, of course. Doesn't matter if you're left, right, or not. It is important for us to be kind to the earth and respect it and understand where we are and our role in that. It's not good to dump motor oil into our water supply. We know that. It's
yes,
not great to burn tires. We know that. Like,
yes.
it's simple stuff like that. Now, that being said, um, the economics behind the population that we have, the thirst that America and developed worlds have for consumer products, for energy, for those things is tremendously high. And supplementing that with the perception of green, of those types of items, it's a good thing to strive for. Uh, but we have to have the perspective that it might not be something that can be accomplished,
I
at
think
least
it
from what we
definitely.
know right now.
I I think it can be accomplished. I think it has been. I think it's been, again. I don't want to sound like this crazy conspiracy guy, but I definitely think we have and have had the technology to replace a lot of these things. As far as burning tires and trash goes, I don't think we do that much in this country. I've never been to India, and I'm not a avid world traveler, although I have been, to a few different countries. Um, the people on the side of the road in Mexico on the way to, Playa del Carmen, they're burning all kinds of shit and it's these third world countries that are ultimately the net, polluters of the planet.
Of course.
And it's just putting in the necessary infrastructure for them and all of that. What I think is a bigger issue here, aside from burning trash on the side of the road, is the corporate influence that these, elites have. Have you heard of ESG
Hmm.
and that initiative and all of that, and how they're putting, downward pressure from the top?
Of
from the
course.
top down, with all of these, regulations and like, social programs and all of this. And it's just, your head can spin, and we could talk about this all day long. I just think that as a country, we really need to go back to our principles and what this country was founded on, and how we got to where we are today. Um, Again, I'm a son of two immigrants. They came over here in the like late '80s from Poland, and they made, my mom, created a company, and she runs her company, and my dad the same. They're the epitome of the American dream,
It's
and they're
awesome.
not, by any stretch of the word, like, millionaires, billionaires, because I think people, take that out of context as well. I mean, if you make 400K a year, dude, you're in the top 1% of earners in the country.
Right.
So you don't have to be a millionaire to be ultra successful. What I'm getting at is, I think we're lost a little bit societally, and I think we're all so divided and split. Um, I don't care. These conversations that we're having, again, I don't really want to get too deep in because we can
So,
sit here and talk about it all day.
yeah,
Um,
what I was trying to get at with regards to, how what is our way out of it is
yeah,
that the way out is less restriction. You have to allow people to,
less government.
yes, less government. You have to allow people to innovate. You have to keep them, you know, in a good tax code where they have all the advantages for being innovative. Um,
Incentivize that.
that is
and
exactly right.
and literally just open up the market and have a true free market economy.
Yeah, and with large government, you will never get that.
No,
And that's kind of the sad state of affairs, is that, you cannot regulate your way into prosperity. That is not how the world works. That's not how
it's
it works.
never worked in thousands of years of, economic, monetary policy. It's just never worked, and that's why we have been a success over the
Correct.
last 100 years, coming
But
off
we are
of, World
quickly
War II.
we are quickly devolving into crazy regulation, crazy restrictions, you know, amazing taxation. I mean, the taxation
It's
of
insane, dude.
what we're doing, and not only that, but then there's no accountability for where those dollars go. Um, so that's, it's a tough thing. You see a lot of people going into business for themselves, and it's also that they can grab onto the tax code and enjoy the tax structure because we don't trust them with our dollar. Um,
I love
and
being a
that makes sense.
1099 man.
Yeah, I know.
Because I control my, my income, my outflows, all that kind of stuff, my P&L sheet. I
Hmm.
hated getting checks, and seeing them literally get ripped in half.
Yeah.
For what, man? Our
Yep.
roads suck. I still have to pay for my health care, like all of this, and it's just like, it
We
doesn't
still
make
bring,
sense.
right, we still bring cash for our kids to do stuff at school. So it's like, yeah, we pay into a tax structure that's supposed to provide us stuff at school, but then we still have to bring additional cash. It's crazy inefficient.
Let's talk about money, dude.
Yeah.
Again, I think we're kind of touching on it with the BRICS, and
Yep.
all of that. They're trying to launch their own currency, partially backed by gold, I think, is their mission, and their true, high level mission is to, de-dollarize the world, including their economies. They've seen how we can control and how volatile economies can become when they're based upon the dollar, and they're basically subject to our chaos, since a lot of their economies run off the world reserve currency. Have you heard
But
about CBDCs?
well, hold on real quick. With regards to the current world standard,
Hmm.
what's it actually backed by?
Absolutely nothing. I believe it was Nixon that took us off the gold standard in the early 70s.
Absolutely nothing. When was the last time that we actually had an audit of Fort Knox and our gold reserve?
Again, this is stuff that's like, is it really above our pay grade, or should we be aware of this? I think we should be aware of it to a certain degree.
Yes.
Bottom line is, man, they took the dollar off the gold standard, and ever since then, if you look at any chart, our purchasing power has been significantly diminished over the last 50 years.
Yep.
And the bottom line is that, this stuff, it's literally worthless, man. Like it's just it's paper.
Yep.
Toilet paper is probably going to be worth more than this eventually. I'm not saying next year, 5 years, whatever, but in the next 25 to 50 years, we may not have a US dollar that is the reserve currency of the world. Time will tell over the next couple of decades how that plays out.
Yep.
Who was it? I don't know if it was Rockefeller or JP Morgan, his famous quote, and I'm going to butcher it right now, but it goes something along the lines of, I care not who controls the government. I care not who controls the food, the laws, blah, blah, blah. Give me control of the monetary supply and I will control the world. And it's true. Money is a win or lose, winner take all game. And we've been on the top for the last 75 years. Ray Dalio talks about this extensively in his more recent book. I don't know if you've read it. It's Principles for a Changing World Order. Um, and just for context, he goes back, I want to say 500-600 years in history and looks at, all of these different governments, and societies and how they played out. And he breaks it down into, everybody's got their start, their rise, their plateau, and then their fall. And the fall starts occurring when the major superpower starts to diminish in education, productivity, infrastructure, all of these different factors. And then the rising power, example, China, starts to increase drastically in these variables, such as education, infrastructure, military, just sheer strength of economic power, from GDP. Um, and it's very fascinating stuff, but at the end of the day, like there's nothing new under the sun. And what we're going through right now, I've never gone through it in my lifetime. You have never, your parents have never. We've all
Right.
been in this, historical time of prosperity and peace. And I think that's coming to a end. Not to frighten people, but there's a lot of different pressures internationally, that are putting pressure on the US. And I'm a patriot, dude. I love this country, man. Like I would not be where I am today if my parents didn't come here and have me here.
Right.
My parents wouldn't be where they are if they hadn't come here. Like I visit some family back in Poland, man. And number one, the mindset, going back to the mindset and everything that, is all powerful is right here. They lack certain things over there across the pond that we have here, that we've just inherently, soaked up of being an American, like culturally, economically, way of thinking, and all of that.
Mhm.
And so, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but point being is like I'm super proud to be an American, and I'm
Yep.
super proud of this country. However, we really need to like grab the reins here, and stop arguing about bathrooms and all this stuff, and go back to our principles.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the generalized level of knowledge for the American base is also going down. It's very convenient for us to not have to worry about that stuff, and not have to worry about if we're going to have war in our country or other items, or if the electricity is going to be on. So we are kind of a soft society, and it's soft physically, mentally, emotionally. We are a very, very soft country right now, and to your point, we are on that back slope, I feel, whereas you have others in the world that are on the upswing. Um,
Yeah.
and you can look at it from another sense too, which is what does America produce? We produce services. We
We're
produce
consumerism and
computers.
services.
We do computers all right, but we don't even make our own chips. I mean,
Hopefully
really,
that's changing. I know
we're
there's a couple
yeah,
of well, and this is going back to the tensions between China and Taiwan.
yep,
Taiwan, I think, produces an astronomical percentage of the world's chips
absolutely,
for computers, phones, cars, everything. This freaking mouse has a chip in it.
yep,
Everything's got a chip in it. And I think there's a couple of large companies that are trying to bring that production back to the U.S., which is phenomenal. That's going to give U.S. citizens jobs. That's going to, stimulate our economy here domestically. It's phenomenal.
yep.
We need more of that. We need to be a net exporter of
Exporter.
energy.
Agreed.
Okay. I mean, I'm not for throwing oil in the ocean and all of this, but like bottom line is the entire globe runs off of petroleum. And
Yes,
it's
it
not
does.
just the gas that you put into your car, it's all of the consumer goods that we use and
To
purchase that are made
petroleums and everything. Yeah.
everything, man. And
Yes.
so if we can drill, and use modern day technology to make it cleaner and more efficient, and work at it from that angle. I mean, energy is huge, just from a human people on like ants on a rock. Like we all
Yep.
need energy,
Yep.
and if we can export that and be like the global, we'd eliminate a lot of the tensions in the Middle East.
Yes.
All of this, man,
Yeah. Energy
man,
independence is a big deal. And again, this is kind of back to the, how do we get out of this? Well, you do need to produce your own energy, have your own energy. You're in a really bad spot if you have to bring energy in. And unfortunately, we have had different administrations with different ideas around how to attack this stuff. Ultimately, as we talked about earlier, it always comes all the way back to the consumer. And I know for a fact that my dollar does not go as far as it did 3 years ago.
no. Are you diversifying your savings at all?
Yeah, so it depends on your perspective and thoughts around how we go about that. I have historically been kind of a super saver, almost to a fault, where it's like, am I broke? Well, I did it to myself, kind of thing.
It's what we were taught, I think, from the
Right.
previous generation too. And Robert Kiyosaki talks about this all the time. Whether you hate him or love him, his ideologies they do have some validity to them.
They do. They do. And so I guess the perspective for me now is like, can we weather market fluctuations and stuff? Well, sure, because we have time and my risk tolerance is higher, and that's great and all.
Sure.
But would my dollar better be suited in a different vehicle? And I'm really starting to explore that right now. And I think that that was an attraction to reconnecting with Justin and getting involved with you guys and just kind of exploring what those horizons look like from a different venture, because I want to be working where I also can build equity in myself, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring that up with other people because I've talked to many people about this, about specifically diversifying your savings pool, what to do with your money and your cash when it comes in, and everybody's got their different view,
Hmm.
which is amazing. Um, you know, uh, Asset managers, financial people, they are typically more bearish on, and again, I'm generalizing, but you like precious metals, crypto. Again, depending on the person that you talk to, some more progressive people are a little bit more bullish on crypto. Point being is, I see precious metals, gold, silver, real estate, cryptos, good projects, being a excellent store of wealth, and almost as a insurance policy. Uh, Kiyosaki talks about this. He goes, gold. He's like, I make money, and then I take that money and purchase gold and save gold. He's a gold bug though, right? Like not
Yeah.
everybody's gonna have a vault full of 60 tons of gold. You know what I mean? But everybody can buy gold and silver still. Did you know they outlawed it? I want to say pre or post World War II. It was either
Yep.
pre or post. And then they
Yep.
bought it all back from the population. I mean, these are facts. This is historical data. They
Yes.
bought it back from the population, and then I think a year later they changed something, and then it ended up being like 4x the worth, or whatever. And look at gold historically and what it's done. I mean, like just logically thinking, right? Like you have a finite supply of this, right? Uh, Money, dollars, within the population, but you can keep printing it. So the more of this that you print, like it's going down in value and purchasing power. And so how do you protect yourself against that?
Precious metals have always been sought after for miscellaneous reasons,
Thousands of years.
thousands of years. And now there's a technological application to those, which means that its
Yes.
use case is expanding, which means that it's even more valuable, in my opinion,
Yes.
than even we thought about it was when we were on the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's on satellites. Now it's in your cell phone. Gold is in a lot of places, and so it
Bitcoin.
has it has this very practical application to it. So in terms of a diversified portfolio, you should have some sort of precious metal, gold, etc., in your portfolio, um, because what we know for a fact is that if you can have a governmental entity alter the value of your dollar, what do you have? What
There's
do you
no
have?
counterparty risk to gold
There you
because you
go.
can take that gold and you can sell it in India, you can
Yep.
sell it in Germany, and it's all universally the same amount. So there's no
Yes.
counterparty risk. There's no governmental, and counterparty risk mean governments
Yep.
because they
Yep.
control the production and distribution of capital.
There it is.
Bitcoin has been coined, the digital gold of this era. And why? Because it is finite. They can't just keep printing it. I think that I don't, and maybe our buddy Chris can speak to this further because I think he's in the
Yeah.
weeds with it.
Yeah.
But some year, and if I mean, chime in. But I think there's a year set that they are going to stop
Yeah.
producing it or mining it.
The mining is coming down to the end of it, and it's I don't know what that date is, but absolutely, it's going to hit the point.
Yeah. And so there's theories around Bitcoin, man. Let's talk about Bitcoin real quick because this is a asset that's gone from, a 1/100th of a penny all the way up to $66,000 in its highs.
Yeah.
And some people, a lot of people, I think a lot of the population either don't even know it, they've heard about it, but they don't know the intricacies of it. It's a little scary to me to think that it does have such a high market cap as far as all of the money that goes into it. In the grand scheme of things, if you calculate the world's economy and derivatives and all of that, it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But it's still a decent amount of money. And my question is, do you see, and there's no government that's tied to this. This is completely
I
decentralized.
know they
Nobody
hate that.
control. They
Oh, they
hate
hate
that,
that. They
right?
hate that.
So
Oh, they want their hand in that so bad.
let's put the tinfoil hats on real quick, because do you think that the United States government, Russia's government, China's government are going to allow this form of currency and this form of wealth be able to exist?
They are actively trying to influence it towards their favor, but the decentral nature of it is difficult for them to identify, navigate, and actually grab a hold of. So it's kind of a cat and mouse.
Mm-hmm.
It'll continue. The real, there's a lot of different benefits to crypto, but really the generalized ledger combined with anonymity is a great way to conduct business. And you have a verification system that has been proven and vetted over how many transactions since Bitcoin's been around. And it is a proven way to keep the individual safe
Mm-hmm.
and anonymous, but be able to conduct business. And so when you look at it from a business platform like that, it is a bartering system. I will give you this in exchange for this. Very basic, does not have external influences. So at its core principle, I think it's a very solid system. Now, are we going to see universal adoption? Are we going to see this go in a lot of different ways? It's tough to know. It's really tough to know until me and you start doing transactions with Bitcoin. The famous guy that bought the pizza, for 10 Bitcoin and whenever that was, and now it's like, hey, buddy, that you bought that pizza for 14 million bucks. Don't know what to tell you, but it's a rough day.
It's funny. There's a lot of skepticism in things that are new to the marketplace. It was the same thing. And Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this all the time. Like, it was the same thing with internet, man. It was the
Yeah,
same thing with emails. Like it
No.
wasn't it, and now email's dead. Like we've kind of went through that cycle of, like now, open rates are, 10, 20, 30%, where before there was 95%.
Right.
So it's just this cycle of new innovation coming in. And I'm very excited about it. I just always think about that. How far and how hard are they going to try to overreach into the monetary supply? And I think they're going to try very hard,
All
because
the way.
this is what they really care about, is controlling the financial system.
Yes, they
Um,
will
and
go all the way. They will do anything that they possibly can to ensure that
they
they
have
can have
control.
their thumb under, yep, on all that stuff. Yep.
Yep. And so CBDCs, which is a acronym for central bank digital currencies, are set to come out. This has been in the works for years now. Um, to me, it totally makes sense, because printing paper money is kind of archaic, and it's got to go somewhere. And when you start dealing with all these decimal points, like it just, everything just continues to get bigger. But point being is they're different, and I don't know how much you know about them, but like a CBDC is completely different from a cryptocurrency, in the
Mhm.
sense that the CBDC is controlled by the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and the U.S.
Yep.
government. And crypto is, again, there's no counterparty risk to it. Um, some platforms now, like you've seen, what was the one with same SBF? What was that one? FTX, Coinbase, Robinhood. These are all
Yep.
hosts, so to speak,
Hmm.
and they're subject to fraud. And that's unfortunate, because a lot of people do have a lot of money tied up into it. But do
Yep.
you know the differences between CBDCs and cryptos and all of that?
Not entirely. No, it's definitely not my wheelhouse. So
Got it. We'll have to have Chris on and dive in with him, because I'm sure he knows a lot of it. I think he's been in the industry close to a decade, right? From what I
yeah,
understood.
he's well versed in that, and I think that he'll have an interesting perspective where he's gonna. This is my hypothesis, but I hypothesize that he will come in and say, look, this is a way for us to break free of fractional reserve banking, of
Hmm.
the currency that we're currently utilizing. This is our avenue out. And I think that he's going to be a proponent of that. Obviously, he's biased, and that's fine.
Sure.
But I also think that he's experienced that ease of transaction utilizing that. And I have also a feeling that he is going to be pretty much against the centralized bank digital currency.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to, and the whole premise behind that is consolidating, the top 10 banks in the country, in the world,
Hmm.
into 10. You know, there's a lot of strain on the banking system right now.
Yeah.
Over the last 18 months, I think.
Yep.
Um,
We were talking about it earlier. I'm seeing it, I'm feeling it. The lean operations, the procurement, and the
yeah.
stuff that you have to do to get approval to get that dollar.
Yeah.
um, you have to work 5 times as hard for the same, if not less, of a payoff. So it's becoming increasingly more difficult to do business. And again, where's that from? Inflation. It comes from, what is your dollar worth? Where is it going? What's it? Are we going to get our loan back, or are we going to hold the risk, and these people are going to default? It's a big question mark around, what that is, and I think that we're going to see this continue, um, and ultimately it might even go into, you know something really ugly, and I don't even want to hypothesize what that is, but it could be very, very bad. Yep.
I agree. David, let's kind of wean towards the end here. I'm going to ask you a fun one. Going back to, if you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice, whether it be professionally, personally, whatever that advice may be, what would it be?
um, we talked about it earlier a little bit with regards to how I ended up in the role that I was in, but it's definitely take that risk, take that leap of faith, because the the risk, I believe, is minimal. It's just time, and I guess in that sense I do have time, from the fact of like, hey, I'm at a midpoint in my life, etc.
Mhm.
but it is to take the risk. If there is a business venture that I want to do, if there is a new role, take the risk, take the leap of faith, do it. And the sooner that you start, um, the sooner you can learn, you can become better versed in what it is. So for me, I'm actually at a really important part of this in my own life where it's like, okay, where do I want to go? Do I want to continue being this W-2 employee? Do I want to continue seeing uh, our government take 40+% of my money that I earned?
Yeah.
um, you know so I'm at that point right now, and I'm really starting to explore this, but it is going to be one where if I can give myself uh, the lesson again, is definitely take the risk, take the leap of faith, invest in yourself. You said that earlier about yourself. Hey, I'm going to invest in myself. We talked about it yesterday, in our group, which is, you know, at the top of your pyramid, you said, hey man, it's me. Because as long as but seriously, right? As long as I invest in me, then that ensures that I can pivot into being, the better person for all the other people that rely on me in my own circle and all that. So it's very complementary. It is progressive when you focus on yourself and you concentrate on bettering yourself. You can progress yourself in a good way. Whereas if you don't, then it is regressive. So it's very rare that you stay stagnant. You know, it's almost always that things that you're doing are either progressive and you're going to get better and everybody's going to get better around you and the tide's going to go up, um, or you're doing things that are regressive and it's not going to be good and you're going to end up having toxicity and other things in the world. And so I think that, taking that leap of faith is one where it is an admittance of investing in yourself. And that is progressive.
I love it, man. Very well put. Couldn't have put it better myself. There you have it, folks. Take risks, calculated risks, bet on yourself, and no matter how scary something is, you're ultimately going to come out on the other end, oftentimes better than where you were before. So,
No doubt.
David, thank you so much, my friend, for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you want to leave with the people? Any other advice? Anything?
Now just love the ones you love,
I love
you know?
it. I love it,
That's it.
man. Coming from the family man himself. So thanks again, guys, for tuning in. We'll catch you guys on the next one, and everybody have a great rest of your day.